If I had to describe one thing I love about the medium of manga, it is reading a story that has been written and illustrated for years with constant dedication from the mangaka who are trying to make something they love exist. It is often a miracle and an achievement when a manga from any magazine of any acclaim succeeds in continuously producing chapters and ending its run with a satisfying conclusion with little to no error in storytelling. This is difficult regardless if you're creating a manga with a new chapter every month or weekly. That's why if you think of some of the greatest manga over the years, many of them are finished, and their legacy has continued to last to the modern day. But the same can be said of the unfinished. Some of the most renowned manga to this day are still running or on the status every fan dreads. Hiatus. Takahiko Inoue is a mangaka of great renown who has made two of the greatest shonen and seinen manga of all time, the latter being Vagabond, an adaptation of the legendary historic samurai Miyamoto Musashi. The series is loved by critics and readers for its gorgeous visuals and deep philosophical outlook of Miyamoto. But that said, it is a series that at the time of this recording has not released a chapter in over 9 years. Long awaited and still heavily discussed by the manga community as a series begging for continuation and at least closure. Something that I think warrants discussing is the hiatus of Mangaka, and how this has happened for years before Inoue, and seems to continue in the modern day with new talent. So, to simplify the complicated aspects of hiatus, I want to answer these questions. What is the environment that creates these hiatus issues? Why do audiences react so intensely when a series goes on hiatus? Why do some mangaka step away when they are healthy enough to work? And finally, is there any way to avoid a hiatus? My name is Mugen, and join me as we talk about the complicated world of manga hiatus. To break down the first question, hiatus reasons, I want to start with the magazines that publish them. There is a lot to be expected as a mangaka. To start, you are tasked with creating a series that, depending on your magazine's output, is meant to last for years, keeping readers engaged and returning to your specific magazine or platform. That is the expectation that the publishers of the magazine have for the creators. It ultimately is what keeps the business fueled. A creative company must continuously find new talent to create work that captures an audience and sustains them. It is not an expectation that the mangaka have on themselves, but it is what deems their work to be sufficient or not. Hence why some magazines that adhere to a weekly chapter schedule are more ruthless in their cancellation of work. Shonen Jump is notorious for this, partly because they have a reputation and a demand for creating long-lasting, memorable, and powerful weekly shonen manga. If you are in Weekly Shonen Jump and your series is not holding up to the titles they have currently in their roster, or new series that are capturing an audience weekly, you are currently treading water. This is packed on top of the unrelenting schedule. This schedule image has become infamous when talking about the workload of mangaka on an average day. It presents the average week of a mangaka who worked at Weekly Shonen Jump. I want to note specifically two things: sleep and food. These are your rest from work, but the hours of sleep you get are inconsistent and not above the average of what humans need to function well. The most sleep gained is after a manuscript of the chapter is fully complete. Food is averaged 1 to 2 times a day, either just breakfast or breakfast and then dinner. We have to assume, if not working from home and you're at an office, that the majority of these meals are not nutritious, healthy meals, but instead the cheap stuff you can buy from the convenience stores. Their only free time listed here is on Saturday, when I imagine they spend time with their family, but that is limited to hours. Not days, hours. Hours to go read a book or other manga, see movies, and live your life are subjected to hours. This of course excludes holidays like Golden Week, so there are some things undercounted for. I want to clarify that long, unfair, and unhealthy hours are not inherent to the manga industry. By me showing this is not meant to put mangaka on a pedestal of suffering, and that there are jobs with worse hours and worse pay. To some of you that was already really obvious, but some of you needed to hear that because I can already hear you typing. It's also important to say that this is just one mangaka's schedule, so it's not a definitive way of life for all mangaka. but it does seem to bear fruit with what the majority of the well-known over the years have said. The schedule of Kishimoto, creator of Naruto, had his schedule published online, which shocked fans with how much he actually worked. But I did learn whose schedule this was, and to be honest, it worried me a lot. This is the schedule of Hiroshi Shibashi. How did I learn that? It says it right there. People keep posting this as an anonymous mangaka schedule. It says it right there. That's the name. Hiroshi is a mangaka who created a series called Nura Rise of the Yokai Clan that ran in Weekly Shonen Jump for 4 years. Now, no offense to fans of Hiroshi or the man himself, but until this video, I have never heard of him or his manga. And that almost illustrates my worry. Nura is a manga series that up to today has sold over 13 million copies. In comparison to other figures in the manga world, he is lesser known but still quite successful. And so if this is a schedule of a mangaka who during 2008 was this busy, what does that mean for mangaka who make series that are internationally huge and to this day are still going? Jujutsu Kaisen is one of Weekly Shonen Jump's most prominent titles at the time of this video, and 4 days before I started writing this video, creator Gege Akutami began a hiatus to preserve his health and well-being. JJK's hiatus follows a trend very much like other series in this video, a long burst of chapters over many weeks followed by a hiatus. For JJK, this has happened before, starting in 2021 where 7 times he missed the publish date. One of those lasting 6 weeks, most likely due to poor health. As we've already glanced at what the schedule looks like for one mangaka, we can guess how intense the work can get from creating the concept of a new chapter into the final product. Many jobs involve sitting for long hours, which can have large repercussions on your body and mind. Many people who work in admin, call centers, or office jobs may know how this feels. Staring at the same screen for hours on end and not moving can lead to many different physical problems. Depending on your workflow and drawing skills, you may still use traditional hand-drawn techniques and will instead be staring down at your desk, hunched over a white piece of paper, not moving much of your body for hours. By the end of the week, you must have around 20 pages completed. That is, scripted, sketched, consulted with the editor to get the green light, sketched again, inked, backgrounds, and finally screen tones, all done for every page. Manga chapters post first chapter average 15 to 20 pages give or take, and if you're creating a highly ambitious battle shonen with intense fights and intricate power systems that all work in tandem every week, it results in time needed to rest. If you don't, much of the art and story suffer from this burnout of work, and you can see this in the chapters themselves. In chapter 150 of JJK, 2 pages stuck out when I read it. Looking at these, you may not see any issues or problems with how the manga is drawn, and it's because there is nothing wrong with these. They are drawn how creator Gege Akutami has always drawn his series. That is because these are the panels from the volume release, finely tuned and touched up to look like any other chapter. But if we look at those same chapters when they were released in the magazine, and as they still appear on the Shonen Jump app, you will see a remarkably large dip in quality. This is not me saying that JJK's art is bad or that Gege himself is a terrible artist. No, not at all. This is just what happens when an artist must rush to the finish line when they even have to say to themselves, I don't have time to do this even though it's not what I want. 2 chapters after this one is when Gege begins his 6-week-long hiatus. And this is a situation that has happened to many other series in weekly manga. Hunter x Hunter is known to have panels exactly like this one. Chapters that were released in the magazine to low quality of what was drawn before and then touched up again in the volume release. We like to treat manga hiatus as this big looming word that could kill a series and have it never return. While that is true, hiatus is also extremely common, and it's become part of the manga industry even as far back as the 90s. There were, and still are, many series in other magazines that have hiatuses quite regularly. Most are done in weekly magazines to maintain the author's health, and I think ultimately is one of the only things that have kept some of the best mangaka from overworking themselves to death. If we look at Jajanken, a website that documents each series in Weekly Shonen Jump and where it lands at the table of contents of each issue, We can see when a series is missing or on hiatus, indicated by the red dashes. A subreddit called r/hiatus charts is also where people document how many times a series missed a deadline or went on hiatus that isn't just in Weekly Shonen Jump. Naruto and Bleach, over the years, missed more than one issue when they were being published, and that is the case with popular series today like JJK. Even Sakamoto Days missed its first ever issue in 2024, and as far back as I could go, or as iconic as the series seemed, I was surprised by how many had missed not just 1 week, but multiple. Looking back, I did see that hiatuses were becoming more frequent as the years went on, and I think it's kind of obvious why. It's the artistic ambition of artists. When manga established its modern presence with weekly magazines, the stories they were telling were not as realistically interpreted and as infused with as much nuance and detail as the manga we read today. Look at Saze-san, a manga that has sold over 86 million copies and centered on everyday short stories that were contemporary and relatable in post-World War II Japan. This was a pioneer of what we know slice of life to be. But as artists became more ambitious and creatively inspired by other work, these 4 panels, in this specific order and with a more simple design for the time, weren't enough anymore. Manga stories today are not told in a single comic strip, but instead multiple chapters. The art is now pushed by the industry to not look better per se, but find the style that suits your story, whether that is borderline realistic or stylishly weird. There were those manga over the years who did yearn for more and push the barrier. Dragon Ball being a clear example of that, expanding its story and world to be more than just fighting a monster a week. Slam Dunk takes a fun comedy romance sports manga and elevates the genre to be more character and game focused. Not only their stories, but their art. Fist of the North Star and JoJo decided to cultivate new detailed art that could rival their Western counterparts and show readers a world that could only exist in manga. One Piece carries that essence of all of them in a modern context, being a manga that embodies fun jokes and skits with characters, but tying the art style to have a strong serious tone when needed. And instead of what happens to Luffy this week on the ship, the islands and arcs span chapters upon chapters. But there is a possibility that the older generation of artists are just built differently and don't require that hiatus because the craft of what they do fuels them. I mean, look at Oda. He's been drawing One Piece since 1997 and continuously has elevated the manga to a new standard. The writing, the artistic details, the Oda level of foreshadowing, and to think he has never had a hiatus once in his entire career is just commendable. You know what? The other artists, they just need to take after Oda. They just need to keep working. They just need to buckle up, get over it, and keep working. I mean, this man is just in... Why is that blank? Four years. 4 years of weekly chapters, only to miss a single deadline in 2001. Chapter 172. I cannot find any reason as to why this happened back then, but I think now is a good time to distinguish what a hiatus actually is. Defined by Merriam-Webster, a hiatus is an interruption in time or continuity. It's a break. The majority of manga and how we define it is usually a multi-week, months, or years-long break from the creating. But it is a break in what would be a regular occurrence, and Oda, throughout his career, has taken many to ensure his mental and physical health is not in danger. It is of the utmost priority of the magazine that Oda remains well, as One Piece is Shonen Jump. It is the face of the magazine and the strongest series in the catalog that to this day brings in new readers like me. My point is, even the larger, most known series, especially the godlike and untouchable One Piece, needs to be given time to breathe and ensure its creator can still live and work. This is chapter 172, the first hiatus, right? Well, a year after that, how many chapters do you think Oda missed in 2002? Do you think 1, 3, or none? Well, if you chose none, you would be wrong. It was a single hiatus, which I've just lied about. It's actually 2. 2003, 4 hiatuses. 2004, another 4. Again and again, more chapters were missed and more time was needed to recuperate. We've seen how many red dashes have appeared for some of the greatest manga in Jump, but let's do that now for modern One Piece and Jajanken's data. As I wrote this script, these are the latest chapters of One Piece, starting with chapter 1000 in 2021 and ending with 1117 in 2024. That's a lot of fucking chapters, holy shit, oh my god. What you're seeing here is every single one of those chapters being published in Weekly Jump and the issue they came out on. But let me flick on the hiatus filter and let's see how much Oda misses a weekly publish. Oda averagely misses every 4th chapter of the month. I want to urge, this is not some distorted One Piece hit piece. God, that sounds fucking terrible, I wrote that. I just want to show you how indomitable of an artist someone like Oda seems, is constantly having to take extra time to create the incredible world you all love and spend hours in. One Piece at its beginning made sense as a weekly series, but today, it cannot, by the scale of its story and art quality, exist in a weekly magazine for over 20 years without taking hiatuses. If Oda did not take a break, 2 things would happen. Luffy would look like this, or Oda most likely would not be living. And I'm half joking. After the sudden passing of Akira Toriyama, which shocked the industry, Oda took more time to take care of his health. And I think based on his mindset of wanting to finish One Piece himself, he is taking steps to ensure he is well enough to do so. Big series like Black Clover moved to a different magazine under the same company with a slower release time to avoid these issues. But of course, not all artists have so much success with their work to afford that luxury. Most don't have enough to afford so many assistants and are limited in who they can employ, which depends quite a bit on how much mangaka get paid and whether or not they are fairly compensated. Assistants are extremely vital to a manga's longevity and ability to meet deadlines. They can mimic the art style for non-important background characters, draw interesting backdrops, and other pieces of the story that are not as integral that they require the mangaka's full attention. Some assistants at most ink in the final designs of the main characters, but of course they'll never draw them from scratch. Oda himself mentions this when answering a question about assistants, stating how they are vital to making One Piece because they draw the backgrounds from his own rough sketches. Yet admits that he draws anything that either lives and moves, all by himself out of stubbornness, lest it makes the characters seem off. Weekly Young Jump magazine posted a video which showed a week of making the manga Kingdom by Yasuhisa Hara. If you watch this video, you can see how much assistants do when it comes to inking other pages and drawing full panels of backgrounds so the sensei can focus on more crucial scenes. It should be mentioned, it is up to the head mangaka to decide what their assistants' tasks will be. Of course, depending on how successful your series is and what your deal is with the magazine, mangaka are only able to employ so many assistants. The magazine doesn't hire them. It is up to the head mangaka to hire them out of their own salary given to them by the magazine. And as you've seen from the hiatus charts, even with assistants, you are bound to miss deadlines. Missing deadlines means hiatus. Taking breaks can also lead to stagnation in popularity and eventual cancellation, especially in a weekly magazine. Unless you are a series that has had a large impact in a short amount of time, readers' interest in the series when it returns may have dwindled as they continue to read other material. Monthly or bi-weekly manga are almost different beasts. While they are not beholden to the constant release schedule and publishing every single week, the ambition of the artist is as great. Having more time to create a chapter throughout a month results in some of the most iconic manga panels and stories of all time, but also results in stronger burnout as you are drawing and scripting the same chapter for 30 days instead of 1 week. As it has been documented with series like Berserk and Vagabond, the art and stories are unmatched for being published monthly. But both series were plagued by hiatuses continuously throughout their run. Health issues arise for mangaka under this kind of schedule as well, and the added time allows them to work more creatively and produce amazing pieces, but they do so to their detriment. Naoki Urasawa is a mangaka who has mentioned some of his best work was created on the tail end of a series being finished. So for a few months, Urasawa would be writing and illustrating 2 monthly series at once. Funnily enough, monthly series partially end up becoming some of the most hiatus-ridden manga in the space, and some in this video are of the few series people pray will one day return or be finished. But this is how hiatuses come about. The magazine's schedule demands a level of quality that must be produced within a certain time frame, regardless if that is through old school sketching and inking or modern means of drawing. Artists will always push themselves the hardest because it is their dream to have a manga in a successful magazine, and often fall into a cycle of constantly being overworked and creatively burned, which can at times allow their stories to suffer or their popularity dip. Some of this is self-imposed by the artist and to a degree very unhealthy. So when they must go on breaks, it is ultimately for their benefit, and however long it needs to take them to get better and continue making art they love, I'm all for that. When making this video, I was worried about how fans of these series and others would react when learning how long they would have to wait for new chapters. But thank God, everyone has been very respectable and clearly is happy to wait forever for chapters that may appear one day. Oh wait, I would like to take a journey with you down the road of what happens when a mangaka who remains on hiatus and the insane people who emerge when they get too tired of waiting. Let's start with the Berserk Idolmaster incident. This is Idolmaster for the Xbox 360, part of a huge media franchise in Japan, and to this day spawns games, arcade machines, manga, you name it. In it, the character plays a producer who must select a group of characters to be part of the next big idol group. I know, it sounds amazing, but focus, because it is this game that at one point had fans convinced was the reason that the late creator of Berserk, Kentaro Miura, was taking too long to make chapters. Azil is one of the admins of the Berserk fan site skullknight.net, and in 2009 posted a large digest dispelling the situation and how this fan rampant rumor came about. The story goes like this. Good friend Koji Mori noted in the magazine Young Animal that when he went to visit Miura, it consisted of a 2-hour conversation about Idolmaster, noting that Miura had been playing it. Who can blame him? It was reinforced by another anecdote made by Miura in the same magazine. In this one, Miura mentions buying a 360 and the Idolmaster game, which he was then playing. Japanese articles would then post titles that created the sense that Idolmaster has caused Berserk's recent hiatuses. This caused fans who were obsessed with the next chapter, which was at the time in the infamous boat arc, to be convinced that Miura was lazy and not spending his free time working on the next chapter. Instead, he was playing a simulator idol rhythm game. This, of course, turned out to not be true. It was later clarified in interviews before his passing and after it that he'd been trying to be on top of his work by learning how to draw digitally to make Berserk's run more efficient. It's been noted by old school artists that transitioning to digital is like teaching yourself to draw all over again with a little bit of a lead. But the time to learn the workflow and then emulate your style in it takes time, and even when you are already talented. This teaching period was also underneath the constant work of creating god-tier art for the manga and not sacrificing its quality. For some fans, it was not worth the wait, as many of them showed their distaste through online comments of how much they didn't like Berserk in digital. i.e., man, that looks like shit. Idolmaster later just became a meme, and those who cursed him out realized how dumb that was, especially after his passing. But it is not the only example where a video game caused a supposed hiatus. Take a look at this photo. I know what you're thinking, but no, this is not Asmongold's house. It's actually not even close. This is a photo of a beloved mangaka playing Dragon Quest V on the SNES in his office or home. God, I hope it's his office. And it's none other than Yoshihiro Togashi, creator of Yu Yu Hakusho and of course the hiatus-ridden masterpiece, Hunter x Hunter. After this photo resurfaced, people suddenly started to speculate that Togashi may have an intense gaming addiction, to which I would say, brother, same. And as a gamer, Togashi probably doesn't do any work, one addicted internet gooner thought. It didn't have much merit until people began lining up the hiatus chart of Hunter x Hunter with the release schedule of Dragon Quest games over the years. I recall responding to people in the comments in my own Hunter x Hunter video when people were referencing an article in which Togashi said that he spends the majority of the time playing Dragon Quest and he prefers that as opposed to drawing his manga. Kinda based, but I didn't think much of it until I started looking for this video. The only article I can find that has anything close to this sentiment is one from The Hard Drive, which it would take 2 seconds to read to understand is a satirical news website. Exhibit A. When Togashi was asked, how do you feel about your manga becoming a worldwide sensation? He responded with, people like my shit? Tight. So, from these 2 video game manga examples, I've concluded that these people don't realize that mangaka are humans and enjoy media like us when they're not working. And 2, have more free time than these mangaka will ever have. As far as I can tell, no hiatus was created because a mangaka wanted to play a video game, except for the dude who writes the Elden Ring parody manga, and that is because the DLC was coming out, dude. The DLC was coming out, which is so fair. If you want to believe that mangaka are wasting their time not working, I guess I can't stop you. But I think this brings up a question that came about as I began digging my way through the bowels and the shit of Reddit. I realized that people will try to find any reason they can for why their favorite series or artists have not released anything in so long. So these questions I ask you, even if these articles were true, even partially, and these people were taking time to enjoy the art of other mediums, leaving their work unfinished for so many years and can afford to do so, is that the worst thing they could do? Why does it matter if it doesn't end? And why do you feel owed an answer or an ending? With a lot of the hiatus stories I mention and those I haven't, there have been many of those who responded kindly to the hiatus of ongoing work. When Frieren was announced to go on an indefinite hiatus, people were deflated, but they understood. When Gege announced his hiatus in June 2024 for health reasons, people understood based on past chapters and how low the page count was for the chapter before this announcement, going at 7 pages. But it would seem the most frustrated are the fans who spend months or years in the dark. Because of this, fans have become so frustrated they just wish to have an ending to a story they love. They love it so much that they are giving solutions to how the series can continue, or believing that nothing like injuries or creative blocks are so severe they justify such long hiatus times. Before making this video, I decided to look a lot more into the criticisms that people have on hiatuses, as well as the possible answers that they give. I would love to show you every single one and really break them down, but there are so many and often they regurgitate the same complaints. So to break down what people call excuses, I want to talk about assistants. Why don't these mangaka get assistants to draw for them in their style if they're in so much pain and they can't draw like they used to or as quickly? That way they can focus on writing or even get help with that too. If you have X amount of time, you could probably do it, but it'll never be exactly how it is. And for some mangaka, that's very important that the story looks exactly how it should be drawn. Look at the most recent Berserk chapters post Miura's passing. I have nothing but respect for Koji Mori and Studio Gaga who have to finish this monumental task. And many times when I read these new chapters, it's Berserk. There are moments that feel like it, but it's not Miura's Berserk, and there is a difference. And that's okay. That's meant to happen. That was going to happen. Getting an artist to mimic a specific art style identically is a very hard thing to teach and an artist to do. And sometimes it's almost not worth doing, especially when a creative person has a lot of pride in their work, that they don't want to hand it off to someone else. The same with writing. It is very difficult to reproduce the same essence of a story that someone has been making for years and have it feel exactly the same. If you read anything by Fujimoto or Inio Asano, try to imagine those stories rewritten by someone else. It just would be an imitation and it would never be a replication. Something that Koji Mori himself has said, without Miura, it just won't be the same. but believes it is something his friend would have wanted him to do. I imagine this is the thing that many living artists fear who are on hiatus and feel that the only other option is to hand off their baby to someone else. I understand how readers think this will just work because of stories like One, the creator of One Punch Man, who has Yusuke Murata, one of the greatest illustrators in the manga industry, do the drawings for the series. So why can't these mangaka do that? Get someone very skilled and very well known to draw their stories. Well, that example is a very specific situation in which One isn't just writing his manga, he also illustrates it as a webcomic. And as of this video, still does it despite not being the most versatile artist, I imagine because he enjoys it. So when it is being redrawn by an amazing illustrator, Yusuke Murata is not doing it as a way to help publish new chapters. He's actually adapting the original source material into a manga with his own style while retaining certain comedic aesthetics. Horimiya is another example of an artist adapting a webcomic loved by readers into an official manga with new stories and art under supervision from the original creator. These are situations where the original artist does not have an intense pride about their illustrations, so they are happy for it to be adapted into something they could never draw in the first place. You could say that that pride then undermines the story and the creation of the manga, but at the end of the day, if you've created something that could be on hiatus for this long, that people to this day still find and read, like me for the very first time, I'd say they're fair to do that. They've given so much of themselves to their work. They should be the ones who have ownership of how it's created. That is something that many creators in other creative fields can't do. Some directors are world famous, but they can't control exactly how production goes. Some creators of TV shows are forced to change their scripts because of executive pressure, or create more unnecessary seasons for shows that are going to end early. They don't always have that control. Manga is one of the very few art forms where you have a large amount of creative control over your work. The only limit is your skill to express what's in your mind. I do think getting an assistant to at least ink the detailed final sketches that you have created is a good idea for mangaka who struggle to draw or sit in the same position for hours. It's possible that is what Togashi has been doing recently as he posts more teasers of Hunter x Hunter sketch sheets. Speaking of sitting for hours, I've been waiting to talk about the specific health problems in this video, because one of the few things that people always complain about is health issues. Are these health issues really that severe to stop them from working? And the answer is, yes they are. In 2005, a manga serialized in Weekly Shonen Jump was temporarily put on hiatus for 2 weeks for an illness. The author returned saying she was healthy and continued the series until a year later in 2006 when the author suffered a severe neck injury. For 3 months she was out of work, and when she returned she put out a statement. "I'm sorry for taking such a long break. My neck is feeling much better, so I'm restarting the serialization." And she did. Until December that same year, she contracted norovirus, an inflammation of the stomach. The author is Katsura Hoshino, and the series she works on to this day is D. Greyman. It is still one of Jump's best-selling series with 25 million copies in circulation. Having had many hiatuses, it is a series that has moved to a new schedule of chapters released sporadically in Jump SQ Rise. Any job where you are sitting at a desk for an ungodly amount of hours, as we have already seen, is not sustainable and can lead to minor and major health problems. So let's list them. Neck pain, back pain, hip pain, shoulder pain, metabolic syndrome, carpal tunnel syndrome, spine fracture, cancer of the lung, colon, and uterine, heart disease, and cervical spondylosis. A lot of mangaka don't like to disclose their illnesses because many enjoy the privacy they still have, and that is their right to not share it. In 2010, the creator of Nana Aiyazawa collapsed and was rushed to hospital for an undisclosed illness, after which, to calm public speculation, she reiterated that she is well, but that she has not picked up the pen since. And to this day, Nana is still on hiatus. It is difficult to return to something you love, especially when it is the reason you have worked yourself to exhaustion or sickness. Shockingly, some fans still don't believe this is a serious issue. I've seen comments saying that health issues are just a cover up for burnout and not something that intense. I'll just say, if it's them literally dying or being so creatively burnt out from creating literal works of art for the majority of their lives, it is not our business to demand those answers or rush them back to work so that this cycle just continues. Many people also tout that like any other job, you have a deadline and you should adhere to it. There are many other people out in the world who have back and health problems like the ones I have mentioned, or different disabilities, yet they have to work jobs to support their families or themselves. And this is very true. That is fucked up and that shouldn't be the case. But when you work in a job like mangaka and you are successful enough to afford the luxury to be able to not work yourself to the bone and kill yourself for your work, I'd say always to take that luxury. Anyone in any job anywhere who can afford that luxury should take it. That is unfortunately the way of the world, and it is unfair, but it's a different issue. And blaming mangaka for not working as hard as people who don't have the luxury to take care of their health based on their living conditions, their pay, or the country they live in is kind of insane to me. It's also insane that there are readers out there who feel owed new chapters or a conclusion to a series because they have bought every volume and have invested their time and their money into it. I can understand that hyper pro-consumer goopy brain when it comes to some other art-based products like video games, for example. Based on marketing, demos, or promises, you are owed what you're paid for. Looking at you, Todd. I'm looking at you, you motherfucker. I'm looking at you, bro. You said 1,000 planets. You said them! I didn't buy Starfield, I'm just having fun yelling. I imagine the mangaka do feel a very strong sense of gratitude toward people who buy their manga, and any new volumes that are released. I think this aspect of being owed a new section to their story is a bit misplaced. Art is not a guarantee in life, but the fact that it exists is something you are very lucky to have. I'm very lucky to have, and it's always a good monetary incentive to companies that you place your money where you value it. Buying volumes is a good indicator that this series has a core fanbase that cares about the story. But standing there, tapping your foot like Sonic the Hedgehog, and waiting for Togashi to finish Hunter x Hunter so you can breathe a sigh of relief on your investment portfolio seems extremely... what's the word I'm looking for? Dumb. It's kind of dumb. Remember, there was a time where art was not available to everyone. Now, art and media is more accessible than it ever has been. Reading manga, especially digitally, is so unbelievably cheap, and Shonen Plus is free. Saying that you deserve the end of whatever series that you love because you have put an exorbitant amount of money into it, I think is misplaced and misguided. It's like buying every installment of every single video game that you love because you're expecting a next installment. Am I owed Half-Life 3 because I played every single expansion and bought every single Half-Life title? No. Am I owed Half-Life 3 because I bought every single game on Steam? No. And I'll say it, I am not owed any ending to any manga series I love, despite how much time I spent reading it or how many volumes or merchandise I own. Creators should never have to kill themselves for an art form or for the people who love their work, despite how much monetary gain they have been given from those who support their work. I can understand from the creator side how much you appreciate people's love for your work, that they want to see more. But too much of this environment has been designed only for the readers and the consumers, especially when so much of this medium relies on the creator to remain healthy and creatively satisfied with what they make. It's sadly ironic how there are readers out there who complain about the lack of output from a mangaka, but then complain again about the death of that same mangaka. It's so disheartening. Anytime you see a mangaka unfortunately commit a crime, retire early, or God forbid, pass away because of their work, the first reaction is, so is the manga gonna end, or... There may be some people who feel I am being too lenient with mangaka and how they creatively do their work. How it is unreasonable of me to give so much slack to them as the manga they created remains unfinished. Something some people would deem a tragedy. And I get that. There are works that I think are amazing, and I wouldn't say no to seeing them finished or be continued by others if it was what the mangaka wanted themselves. But I feel that our compulsion for closure in a fictional story that had such an impact on us is not as paramount as a person's health. And it's okay if things don't end. I would argue not a lot of great art stops, maybe where it should, but instead continues to linger on into becoming a shadow of its original self. It's a downer for a story you spent years reading or keeping up with, never to get the conclusion you feel like it deserves, but I believe if it was choosing between getting that closure you feel you deserve for the characters that don't exist, or of the well-being of the person who created them, the answer is clear, and it is up to the creator to make that choice, to which, as sad as it is to not see some stories end, it is for the best sometimes. So where does that leave the mangaka who are healthy and can continue their work, but they haven't? Takahiko Inoue would be in this very specific category, and that is to say, he has had health issues himself over his years creating manga. As far as can be told, he never missed a week when serializing Slam Dunk. It was only after transitioning to Vagabond that where majority of Inoue's health issues and creative burnout began. Getting later and later on his deadlines and pushing his ability to produce as an artist further and further. Starting with the manga tools and techniques he was already familiar with, he would later start using an ink brush to simulate hair and strong motion that evoked the art style of the time in which Vagabond was based. A brush that takes many years to master and creates even more room for error when drawing. If you've watched a lot of content about Takahiko Inoue, you most likely would have seen footage from this special NHK did of the artist. Following him in his day-to-day creation of Vagabond, he tries to take the concepts inside his head and the emotions in his characters and make them feel real, only to still not be satisfied with the quality of his work, despite it being more than any reader or fan would expect. So despite some health issues over the years, Inoue seems to struggle primarily mentally with the creative process of trying to bring his characters to life and make sure they act how they would in each situation in the story. From my own gushing of his work, both Vagabond and Slam Dunk, I know that Inoue can create work that rivals many modern manga that run today. Even if he was personally insecure with a chapter or panel of his work, we as lovers of this story may see it as the best he has done yet. So, is the real issue with mangaka who are allegedly healthy enough to work that they just need to get over their insecurity and make the art they know they can achieve? I personally believe there are core aspects of creativity that you shouldn't rush. I also believe that some deadlines can spawn creativity when in a bind. So, to the people who are watching who are very, how do I put this nicely? Give me my manga now. I must have it. I must eat it. I must see the ending of the story. I have nothing that will make me fulfilled except this manga's ending. Please. It's all I have. I've invested my entire personality into manga and anime. There is nothing left. I must fill out my Excel spreadsheet of everything I've watched and download the extension that allows me to watch anime at 2 times speed. Please. I have to eat more. Peak. All I know is consumption. I am hungry. May feel like, okay Mugen, you have to at least admit that creative burnout is one thing, but no new chapters in 9 years. Surely there cannot be a creative reason good enough to justify this hiatus length, especially when it is apparent Inoue is healthy enough to continue Real, which is his other work that he released a new chapter in 2024. Surely you can concede here. Would you call me crazy if I said I won't? I want to emphasize that people who want to see the conclusion to their favorite stories aren't entitled and aren't invalid for feeling that way. Except the money invested consumer goopy brain monsters, which in my head look like this. I feel I empathize with Inoue when it comes to being creatively burnt because I've been there and I know how hard it is to make something that you are both happy with and that is good. I'm not trying to put my YouTube videos on the same level as the amazing manga I have mentioned in this video, but they can follow the same thought process when it comes to creating. In fact, a lot of art can. Let me give you an example of my own mental. When you have made a lot of videos, the majority of them are being terrible, and then you start to make some that are interesting and more well structured, and if you reach a large audience of people, you can start to understand why it is that people enjoyed watching it. Trial and error and a little YouTube algo push helps. You realize what good videos made by you are. And now that you know that, how much better can they be? How more ambitious can you go with your editing, with your script work, or your overall output? All of this planning, and you can make something even better. And in your eyes, you do, and people enjoy it. Hours creating the concept, scripting, editing, to make an ideally enjoyable 20-something minutes. And then when it's done, you realize after a day, you have to do it all over again. And how will you make it better than before? How can you top this? And if you can't, what's the point? If it isn't exactly how it should be and doesn't say exactly what you want to say, what is the point? Anyway, he's talked about in many interviews that when he makes a story like Vagabond, it requires putting his mental state into that of the characters he is drawing. Otherwise, how can you truly show what emotional state is there when they are cornered by enemies, or realize how much of their life they've wasted? That is a very harsh mentality to place on yourself, but to him, this is what made Vagabond what it is, and as we have seen before, in his eyes, he has failed at that. So you kind of stall as you try to achieve all that you know you can do. Time goes by, and as time goes on longer, expectations are built up, and nothing could justify something that can take this long or amount of work. So you eventually resolve to do nothing, or focus on other things that don't make you feel this way. Making chapters of Real, which is about basketball, which you love, or directing an adaptation of your manga. All the mangaka I have mentioned, or the ones that will continue to be on hiatus or eventually end up in its grasp, all started their series because of the love they have for the craft of manga. And even when it breaks them physically and mentally, they continue to make art for themselves and others. But before I move on, I want to talk about another piece of art, but not a manga. Instead, a movie. The Overcoat is a Russian stop-motion animated film created by couple and collaborators Yuri Nornstein and Francesca Yarbusova. Together, they have created some of Russia's most acclaimed stop-motion animated films. Overcoat is an adaptation of the famous Russian novel of the same name, and utilizes a form of cutout stop-motion animation. Every frame and movement of characters, including snow, is a cutout piece of laminated film placed by hand and captured to create these amazing images. In a documentary chronicling the making of the film, the filmmakers told Yuri that so many people are excited to watch the movie and they can't wait. To which he replied, they shouldn't. As of this video, The Overcoat has been in production for 43 years, solely by Yuri and Francesca alone. The film is reported to have 30 minutes completed, and both filmmakers believe that they may pass before they ever finish it. There is an amazing video by Atrocity Guide if you want to know more about it. But just because they may never finish it, or it may be finished by another years after they're gone, what they've created and the act of making something, while stressful, painful, and not easy, doesn't make the act of doing it meaningless. They existed, and their work being incomplete does not take away from what it is that it made you feel. It's only when you think what could have been and what may happen that it is diminished. So where does this leave us? An industry that, as you are watching this video, is still built around the schedule of constantly publishing chapters that take hours upon hours to make and eventually put mangaka in a position where they waste themselves doing so, because it is an amazing opportunity to have your work published in a magazine thousands or even millions of people read. I wanted to end this video with the idea that manga unfinished is still amazing and shows the plight of creating something. We cannot change the schedules of mangaka who work in magazines. Physical or digital, they are contract workers for a company and have a schedule they must uphold, especially the majority of them who are not famous enough to receive exceptions like Oda or Inoue, or make enough money to afford more staff, work fewer days, and go on a creative hiatus for the sake of the story. So what can be done for future mangaka? Is this the only path to making a manga? Is this involuntary working conditions the only way to succeed in the medium? For this video, I was looking for a lot of footage of mangaka drawing stuff. And I came across Naoki Urasawa's very own YouTube channel, where he has videos of him making a page of manga and creating color illustrations of the various characters from his work. From this, I found that there are mangaka out there who have been in the industry for short and very long periods doing this kind of content. Kuwabara Taku and Akihito Yoshitomi are some of the few mangaka who have been in the industry for a long time who show themselves making their manga or just sketches of characters they like on YouTube. They, along with many others, are some of the YouTubers that I've been showing in this video. Online content creation platforms like YouTube or, God forbid, Twitter. These are places where artists frequently showcase their work and promote it. There are more ways now than ever for artists to promote and monetize their art, and some have even made manga or webcomics from it. Take Bresson and Rerekina for example. They have a series called Lady of Radiance, which follows the black and white manga aesthetic but appears heavily inspired by games like Dark Souls and Elden Ring. The webcomic is open for anyone to read on their paid Patreon, where you can also see work in progress sketches. At the end of the day, a magazine that thousands of people subscribe to and read is essentially a platform where you can show the series you want to make. Platforms like YouTube, which have developed growth mechanics directly targeting people interested in manga itself, may be just as viable if you give yourself the time to market your manga as content. White Manga is a channel you may have seen here on YouTube when trying to learn how to draw manga yourself. He has created his series called Apple Black, which is published under his own company he founded with other artists who make comics in the style of shonen manga. Radiant is a French manga by Tony Valente that, like Apple Black, publishes volumes in a yearly cycle, typically 2 a year. Radiant is heavily influenced by the shonen manga like One Piece, Naruto, and Fairy Tail. Manga creating a schedule of volumes per year as opposed to chapters weekly may have more time to better showcase their work. There are open source websites that allow you to publish your work and enter international competitions to meet publishers, because as of now, it is still the most stable way to make a living as a mangaka is through a magazine or a publisher. To sum it up, exposure is what I'm talking about, and YouTube is where you can monetize your process, as your work is also a strong way to let people out there know that you have made something on Manga Creators Plus or on your very own Patreon. Can you imagine your favorite mangaka who has just left after publishing weekly in Shonen Jump and decides to self-publish through a website like Patreon? You as a fan could see more of how the manga is made, financially support them directly, help them hire more staff, and when the volumes are released, you could get a discount as a patron. Is this the perfect answer to the manga hiatus? No. I'm a 27-year-old white guy from Australia, what do I know? But making content and seeing the success of it myself, and just getting eyes on you, can dramatically change the path at which to eventually make something else. Alternative routes for different artists who want to achieve the same goal are always better than just one. These all, at least to me, are new models for aspiring mangaka in and out of Japan to follow, besides just trying to get serialized the same way. Instead, if you're going to work yourself to the bone over the manga you love and lose your social life completely, you can do it on a schedule that allows you to still take care of yourself. This doesn't change the fact that aspiring creators may still fail and not get that chance to serialize and earn a living. You will still be on a grind, but at least you can do so with less creative time restrictions and more experimentation. I think we are just waiting for that one massive manga to be born from the internet that outshines most traditionally published work for it to happen. And even if it does and never finishes, that's fine as well. This video has been a weird one to make. I started scripting again, learning a new piece of info, and then going back and having to completely redo the entire intro because the focus of what I wanted this video to be slowly changed. Hiatuses are good, but the reason they happen is bad. People don't understand them or they don't care. So how do I express all this? How do I do it well? How do I do it cohesively? And how do I condense it? But before I could get into the meat of making this video, I got sick with COVID. 4 years of dodging it as I worked through the pandemic in a restaurant. And I never got it. Never got it even when I was in a car with someone who was positive for 3 hours. And it wasn't the worst sickness I've ever had, but mentally I had this overwhelming feeling of pressure. I thought, I can't go to my traditional job. so I should at least continue working on this video. But when I would stumble over to my desk, shivering and coughing at my monitor, I would look at the pages of what I had already written and just feel like all of it was just a waste of time. No one's gonna find this interesting, I'm rambling too much, this isn't coherent, this video isn't good. On the days I thought I should try and fix whatever I felt wasn't good enough in the script, I'd get this weird brain cloud over my head that made me forget how I write my videos. I would type a sentence and then just delete it immediately. I started feeling like I'm just not good at this, or maybe that I never was, and maybe all of it was really just a bunch of luck. It was like I had the knowledge of what I usually did, what my process was, and how I could make the videos, but it just disappeared. It's like I'm fighting Sephiroth and I've done it a million times, but suddenly I'm level 1 and I can't beat him at level 1. It's just not possible. I started thinking, well, I can do other stuff. I can make some thumbnails, or I can brainstorm some other ideas, and maybe start scripting them. Maybe I can read something for a future video. But I didn't. And I just felt so guilty. And as dumb as that may sound, I did. Whether it was for the people who are waiting for the next video, the people who support me graciously on Patreon, or even for myself. I would lay in bed, I would play games for like an hour, which for me is not a lot of time, and if I wanted to read manga, it would just remind me of the work I still had to do. So I just waited, and tried to focus on other things. Something that isn't what is occupying my mind. The more time went by and the better I felt, I started thinking of what I would start doing after the COVID had finally left my body. What edits I could make to the script. Maybe I can fix this. Maybe I can salvage what I want the ending to be, because I still didn't know what it would be. But the day I tested negative, I looked at the 20 pages I had already written, and I was annoyed. I was annoyed that this is all I had. This is all I had in the time at which I could have had more, or this still isn't exactly what it could be, and maybe this is the best I can do. I don't have time, even though this isn't what I want. I later saw a clip from cooler YouTuber and life therapist Pirate Software about burnout. He mentions when he got long COVID, he would have trouble remembering how to code or make art like he did before, and that over time, it would slowly come back to him. As I read this right now, I still have long COVID, but at least now I can see through the fog a bit, but I don't know if it's enough to make a difference. All the time I thought I had didn't change what this video is. The ramblings of a guy who feels burnt out and thinks we have the most insane luck to live in a time where we can read the greatest stories put to paper, and how unhappy others are that they don't end because they can't accept that not everything will. While writing this, I thought of a lyric by Porter Robinson, and in my favorite song, Musician, the song talks about this inevitability of creative power. So strong inside you, it's something you can't possibly quell with reason or logic. And it's amazing because you'll be able to make great things from it. But it will also burn you every time, as it takes so much of you to make something from it. And it's a lot, and it can drain you, and it can almost kill you. But you can't stop now because it's already begun. Maybe that's how life is, doomed for people like creators, artists, mangaka, and more. This inevitability that all this possibility of more time I mentioned may not change anything. I almost thought of not doing this video, because like a chapter, there can be no amount of effort or work I put into a video that justifies me keeping people waiting, or more importantly, myself waiting. But then I remembered what this video was about. It's about people who are in this state, who are creatively burnt out, who are sick, who are tired, who feel like they've given everything and it's not enough. I love manga. I find it a craft similar to my own that places unnecessary time constraints and self-evaluation through numbers and metrics and rankings that can just instill this sense of inferiority and disappointment. And despite all that, you decide to make something anyway, because it is meant to be fun. That's why you start. At least that's why I did, because I saw something I had to talk about. I saw something that made me want to express how much I liked it, and in a way that was fun and different and interesting. So for this video, seeing people want endings more than someone's health, and charts of mangaka missing their own deadlines even when they don't want to because they work so hard, made me start this video. And I'm so glad that I did, because it's reminded me why I make a video. But honestly, I still don't know how to end this video. How can I construct an ending to this video that feels like it justifies everything, the time at which it took to make it, to script it, to edit it, to the time it took people waiting and wondering, to the time it took you to watch this video and feel like it validated your time and it was interesting and intrigued you, to make it all feel finished and done and complete, to have a satisfying conclusion. I don't know how to do that for this. So maybe I just won't. And that's okay. Thank you so much for watching and making it to the end of the video. There is a lot of info I couldn't condense into this video just because it would become so long and detract away from more of the emotional side that I wanted to capture with creating manga, and that involves how much mangaka get paid and the kind of deals they're given. All of that is going to be referenced in some of the articles that I've already used in this video down in the description below, as well as some videos that I think are really informative and interesting. Besides that, a lot of the footage I've used are of course from mangaka who have their own YouTube channels, as well as independent artists who are trying to make it a living. So I'm going to include all of them down in the description below, as well as some others that I found that I didn't include in this video. Some of them are really interesting, including Boichi, who created Sunken Rock, or more illustrated it. He talks about the manga industry, and I would urge you to go watch some of his videos as they're very, interesting. Before fully ending this video, I have to say a massive thank you to anyone who has been watching my videos for a long time, of how long you had to wait for this next video, as well as, of course, the patrons who support me over on Patreon. For waiting so long, I want to say a massive thank you to all of my patrons. Lenoriel, Big Nerd, Andrew Goss, Robin, Corey, Parker Evans, Valeria Guerrero Ferreira, Deus Volt, Jay the Rebel, Mr. Lamb, MF Soups, A Sloan, Marlon Allen, William McGuire, Shingoku Satsu, Jeffrey M. Slavins, Kyle Anderson, JK Sensei, and Chandler. Thank you all so much for still being a part of the Patreon and bearing with me as I got through this massive behemoth of a video, and I hope to make more videos like this in the future. And if you want to see those, please subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment. It helps the algorithm know that you like this video and you want to see more of it. If you're so inclined, you can be like these great patrons and go join on the Patreon, where I will be updating you more regularly on the next video, as well as much info I can give you, as well as behind the scenes that I'm able to capture, as I'm going to be upgrading my PC to handle some more of the storage that I've gained from making this video. I want to say again a massive thank you to people for being very patient, and I hope this video was really entertaining for you. But I'll see you in the next one. Until then, my name's Mugen. As always, have a good one.